everybody. Kyle Meredith here. Consequence of Sound, Kyle Meredith with the podcast that you can catch Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at consequenceofsound.net, as well as being heard 6 p.m. every weekday at wfpk.org. Thank you for joining for the second installment here of Kyle Meredith Live. I'm going to go ahead and bring in our guest. So Monday, what we were talking about, of course, with Billy Hardison was NIVA. That's the National Independent Venue Association. And the story that 90% of venues could close or just never reopen after the pandemic. So that's sort of, I want to say that because that's kind of part of the conversation that's going to be acting today. I should now also introduce you all to my guest here, Tyler Williams, as you know, as the drummer for the Head and the Hearts. It's good to see you, sir.
You as well, man. Yeah. Thanks for having me back.
No, thank you for joining here. They say back because Tyler was kind enough to shoot sort of the pilot version of this series with me here. So Tyler and I are going to be talking about the business of being in a band. It's one of the hardest things right now. And I want to include every one of you that's watching right now. You can feel free to chime in with questions, comments. We will be reading some of those and including them in the conversation as well. So please, if you got something that's a part of the conversation, jump in here and be a part of it too. So once again, the Head and the Heart. Now, the thing is, so many bands right now are trying to figure out how to release music, whether it's an album that they had planned on releasing. The question has been, do I delay it? Do I go ahead and put it out just digitally? Because I think what a lot of fans haven't realized is the delays aren't just because they're going, I don't know what to do right now. It's because they can't actually physically press the album that they planned on pressing. The pressing plants have been closed down like everything else in the world. The Head and the Heart, as I've used this word in our pilot episode too, I think you all have the luxury right now of not being on an actual album cycle proper as you were last year, right? I mean, you guys are, it's not an off year, but I'll let you go ahead and explain.
Yeah, so, we released Living Mirage last year, and I guess that was, over a year ago now. It seems time has flown. But, you come out with a record, you tour on it, you do everything you can to get people to listen to this work that you've just spent 2 years of your life on, right? And that continues for we usually do around 1.5 years or 2 years per every record, touring and just bringing it to fans every night. So this year was going to be, I guess, kind of the victory lap, you would say, like playing some of the larger rooms. We had Margot Price as support with us. That was going to be incredible. We were so looking forward to that. So it's a huge bummer to have to cancel this entire year. And, hopefully we can make it up next year.
Right. I want to quickly jump in there. Someone asked about the NIVA thing that we were saying. SaveOurStages.org is the website to go to the venues, because that's sort of the other part of this equation is even when you guys turn around and get back on the road, what's going to be there? I mean, is that part of the actual conversation you guys are having at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for developing bands, it's even harder, for bands who maybe just put out their debut record. What if they come back and 90% of the venues have shut down? All these press outlets are laying off people, that is super frustrating to see, because those are the people who are contextualizing music for fans out there, for listeners who can come in and find their new favorite band or their new favorite artist. So where's that going to happen now? And it's a scary time, especially if you're a developing band. I think our conversations are really kind of going towards, lack of guarantees. So how do you create budgets around what you're doing, and how do you secure, your crew or your bus or whatever it is that you're doing in a financially sound way. So it's really difficult to kind of create a plan. Honestly, yeah. It's one day at a time. So.
Because that's the other part of it. If you are a successful band, as the Head and the Heart is, you're not just talking about a few band members here. There's actually the team that supports it. I mean, you guys are, you're on the bus stage of your career. You can take out. So you're talking drivers and everything else out there. How big is the Head and the Heart's company?
Yeah, I guess on the road we do 2 buses and a semi, and we have quite a few crew members, probably around 10 on the road with us. And then we also have, management. We have our agents. We have business management. And at a certain point, we really do feel responsible for some of their livelihood and making sure that their families are taken care of. That's a big. That's something that we shoulder a lot, and it's definitely something we think about when we put out music or when we create plans. We're all family on this side of the equation. And it isn't just us making it happen. We have so many other people who support us and who we really care about. So this is doubly hard, for them. And we're doing everything we can to try to mitigate the damage, really.
Right. And to go on to the business, keep going on the business part of that too. The road is so important. The road is so important to every band. How much of your budget, I don't know if that's what I'm asking here, but how much of your money comes from the road?
Yeah, it's probably like 75%.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely it's a big portion. I think hopefully some of this live stream stuff and doing these shows from home actually will be another way that bands can kind of come out of this, and hopefully that support from fans wanting to see a show at their house. Mm-hmm. Like maybe they have a couple drinks and some dinner in front of the TV watching us play. I think that would be an incredible result to come out of this, and hopefully that's a silver lining. Just like another revenue source for bands and for artists, so they don't have to spend their entire lives on the road, and they can be with their families a little bit more. And I think mental health is a big issue right now that we're dealing with in the pandemic, people being so isolated. But I think it happens a lot on the road too, to musicians. That isn't often discussed. We've dealt with it in our band, and it's so tough to find your way out of that. So hopefully maybe there's a healthier work-life balance that comes out of this,
Yeah, let's go there a little bit more too, because we're starting to hear that more. It's become less taboo, I guess, for artists to talk about, because for a long time, for a lot of decades, you wanted to project that you were a rock star. I say you in the broad sense, with the capital Y, obviously, and it wasn't talked about. But it's so easy to turn to alcohol every single night. It's so easy to turn to everything beyond alcohol if you do end up down that road and everything. As you said, you all have dealt with it. What has that meant for you all? And if we can be frank, we're talking a little bit about Josiah, who used to be in the band a long time ago. He's being very open with his conversations out there. He's doing on his solo career now. But what have those conversations been like as part of mental health and what you could do?
Yeah, it was funny to see that situation take hold, because it really is the first time in my life I've witnessed that firsthand. The sort of devolving into a second life, and the hiding of behavior. It's really difficult, especially when you're on the road and you have to put on a brave face every night and try to go out there and crush it and make people happy who, that's kind of your whole job is creating something that these people can resonate with. So how do you do that when you don't feel complete as a person? And your friend who you love and care about is so obviously suffering from addiction. So it's been really hard. It kind of blew up our whole band, the writing situation. We've had to fight and claw our way to, connection as a unit again. It's mental health on the road is, if you don't have it, it is going to, wreak havoc on the ones that you care about and the ones that you love. So peace of mind and trying to stay sane is all you have.
Right. Well, it does seem like you guys came out of the other end on that one, which is important. That wanted to point out that you actually took that moment to kind of, grasp that again, to get, put everything back on track. I think you and I talked a lot about that on our last album interview as well, because I know that was sort of part of the album that you guys were going into.
Sure.
A little bit more about Tyler too. And if you've just joined us, I'm talking with Tyler Williams of The Head and the Heart. I also want to point out, I said a website wrong earlier, saveourstages.com, I believe it is. And that's the National Independent Venue Association. If you want to help, just search NIVA, N-I-V-A, Save Our Stages. That's, again, with the independent venues really having a hard time right now, that's how you can be a part. You're also responsible for other artists. It's not just one thing that you're part of this Head and the Heart family, but you have been part of getting Lucy Dacus out into the world and signed. Right now, you're working with Illiterate Light. What capacity do you work with these bands? I mean, do you call yourself a manager? Is this just sort of a helping hand?
Yeah, I guess manager is a good term. Friend, support, shoulder to cry on. You know, it's interesting being from my background of, coming up in the music industry with my own band, and then being able to kind of foster these artists along and hopefully contribute something, helpful to their career. But yeah, I mean, Lucy was my first client out of Richmond, and I didn't know if I wanted to start a record label or, how I would actually help my friends kind of find an audience in the music industry. And she was just incredible and was already well on her way. So it wasn't like a giant leap for me to come in and guide her a little bit, but she obviously knows exactly what she's doing, and she's such a singular talent, very observant. So I have nothing but love for her. And working with the Matador crew, that label is so storied and just an incredible history of putting out great music. So yeah, that was such a great experience to have as my first artist.
Yeah. So here you are, launching another band. And again, is it the same sort of story of what you're doing with Illiterate Light as versus what you're doing with the Head and the Heart right now? Because the Head and the Heart, so you guys are in the recording phase, you're in the downtime phase right now, but that's not the case with Illiterate Light.
No, it's difficult. Like I was discussing about developing bands, like how do they go out and tour? How do they promote their music, and how do they connect with their audience? So that was difficult because they were coming off a headline tour that was very successful, and it felt like there was this, building momentum behind them, which is always such a great feeling. It's like one of the most exciting and fun times, I think, in a band's career. So yeah, it was difficult. We had to kind of just shut everything down. And I think what they've, really focused in on is how do we keep creating, and how do we keep those creative juices flowing so that when this is all over, we have just like so much great music to come. So that's their focus right now. And they're in Richmond, Virginia, bunkered away at a studio called Montrose, who our good friends Adrian and Alex run. So they're just in creation mode, and I think that's what a lot of bands are doing. How do we make the most of this time, stay sane, and hopefully feel inspired? Because I think that's what this moment has done for the Head and the Heart, really.
Yeah, and you're as far as inspiration goes, you all are very vocal about your stance on things on the web, and I talk about Twitter, Facebook, all of that. In these movements that we're in, Black Lives Matters, we're in Pride Month. You all have never shied away from talking about what you stand behind. As you're in writing mode, and I want to get more specifically to these movements too, but as you're in writing mode, have you found that these moments are being reflected in the songs that you're writing at all?
I mean, I think it would be hard to not have them influence our writing. I think the music that we put out is so focused on the human experience, and there's a lot of discussion of human rights and how we progress as people, and how do we kind of open up the community. So it would be really weird if it didn't find its way in. We're still very early stages in our writing and recording process here, but we talk every day now. Mm-hmm. And we talk about these deep issues that are affecting the country, way more so than we have in the past. And I think it's kind of amazing that the pandemic, it's obviously not the greatest thing in the world, but there is a silver lining where we've all kind of slowed down and maybe have more time to approach these conversations from maybe a more thoughtful perspective.
Right. And that, so let's start then with, you know, how do you, and to be blunt, how do you as a white band talk about Black Lives Matter and the movement that's happening out there? Because that's been part of your all's personal conversations, right?
Yeah, for sure. Charity's been really involved in the Seattle organization and bringing support that way. It's interesting because I think our fans and our audience, they believe in justice and human rights and love and freedom. So for us, it's not a giant leap to bring that up to our listeners. But the way we talk about it, obviously we don't have the answers. We're not authorities on this. We are students, and we're trying to find the best education that we can, reading books. Kendi is obviously an amazing author, and I've just picked up 2 of his books, and I am looking forward to checking those out. So it's like, how do we educate ourselves, further the conversation, but not take over or take any bandwidth up? Because it's not our place to try to be leaders of a movement, but we want to spark a conversation within our audience, and hopefully get people thinking more deeply about these issues.
Yeah. Now beyond, hitting the like button, your audience hitting the like button, have you seen that conversation kind of erupting?
Yeah. And I mean, it's hard not to try to step in and move it in the direction that you want to see it go in, or, everyone has their perspective. And I think that we have our perspective, and all we can do is put that out there in the world, and if that helps the conversation, if that changes minds, if that moves humanity forward, then that's all we're trying to do.
I appreciate that. So what does that mean then for the upcoming election? I mean, you all have played rallies in the past, right?
Yeah, we did 2 rallies for Obama in 2012. And I mean, that was obviously a highlight of my life. I'm a large supporter of his vulnerability as a person and his openness. And I don't know, I miss him as a president, and he was an amazing person to have a conversation with. So that was epic.
Yeah. No, do you think you can be, obviously it's going to be different. The rallies are going to be different. We don't even know if there will be rallies at that point. Biden being the vice president to Obama, now the front runner for the Democratic Party. I mean, how do you all see Joe Biden and do you have a hopeful pick for his VP?
Yeah, I think the vice president pick is so important. It's such a moment right now that if he gets it right, it could be such an explosion of goodwill and love, and I'm looking forward to that. I think it needs to be someone like Stacey Abrams or Kamala Harris, and if it's Elizabeth Warren, that's amazing too. I think she'd be an incredible president, but I really would love a woman or a woman of color to be the VP pick. I think it's definitely important right now. But again, there's so many issues that we can't gamble on,
Right.
Just even climate change solutions, the environment, the dismantling of the EPA that's happening right now, women's reproductive rights. How do we gamble 4 more years of having that torn down? So that's my perspective on it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how it all shapes out.
So that's one of the things I feel like where the live streams really do play a big role if a band chooses to use it in this kind of sense. Again, because if rallies aren't happening, the digital version of those rallies, and we've seen a little bit of that. I remember Jim James was a part of. I think that was Bernie put together a big digital rally that happened on that one. So I know Jim was a part of that, which a bunch of others as well. But that seems to be one of the easiest ways for a band to get in and do their support right now, because as we were talking about the live streams earlier, that's a nice stopgap, but it doesn't seem like you could really you can't tour consistently drawing money in that way. But could you all see yourself using it in this way?
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of the live stream and the digital world that we live in is what can't we do? I think the opportunities are endless. And I think we're just starting to figure out how we can create that and create our own experience from our band's perspective. How do we make it feel like us and not just some template of a thing? So we're definitely working on that right now, and I love your idea of digital support, digital political rallies, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you can take my compensation and donate it to the cause. That's again, as we wrap up here, I do want to encourage you, if anybody has a question, you can throw it in here as well. I'll read something that comes through. I haven't pre-read this, by the way. I've noticed that there are more record store day releases this year. Is this a way for artists to release some music during the pandemic, or just a coincidence? So I can't really speak on record store day myself, but for you.
I feel like record store day is just getting more and more packed every year. But especially this year, obviously people probably have a lot of stuff that they're working on, or feel the need to get out into the world right now because there are a lot of things to say and a lot of things to talk about. But it's also about keeping the conversation going around your band. It's like, I think there's a lot of people who, personally, it's scary to feel like you're not going to be out on the road, seeing your listeners every night and connecting with people every night. So I know it's a worry for a lot of artists just to be out of the conversation,
Yeah, and I know, especially the record stores. I'll bring that up. They seem to be the ones that are able to arrive to some kind of answer very quickly on how to, like, a couple of hours here in town in Louisville. They're opening, but under strict guidelines and everything. Whereas the venues, again, as we've talked about, they were, as they say, they were the first ones to have to close. They're going to be the last ones to have to open. But it seems like the record stores are at least kind of figuring that out. And man, they could totally use the support right now as well. So.
For sure. Get out there, buy some records.
Right. Get out there and buy some records.
Face covering on, of course.
Did you see Bruce Springsteen's comments?
What'd he say?
He's doing his radio show, his Sirius radio show. And Bruce, for as passionate he is apparently not one to swear very often. And he ends this beautiful setup, like a minute, 20 seconds. And he speaks directly to Trump. And he says, Trump, put on a fucking mask.
Springsteen for president.
No one's going to complain. Tyler Williams with the Head and the Heart. I want to thank you for doing this. Is there anything you guys got going up late? You're working on the record. Is there anything else we should be looking towards right now, towards on your socials that we'll see?
Yeah, we're actually, I can probably announce this right now and make it official, but we're actually releasing a deluxe edition of Living Mirage with 4 unreleased songs. So that's going to be coming out here in a couple weeks, which we're stoked about. And we've teamed up with an amazing Black artist out of Seattle, Anthony White, for a limited edition merch item, and all proceeds will go to Black Lives Matter Seattle. So I think that's something that we're very focused on. Again, going back to that issue, it's like, how do we hire more Black artists? How do we hire more Black crew members? Whatever it may be, how do we center those people in our world, where maybe it hasn't been so much of a thought in the past. And that's embarrassing, honestly, to say that, but we need to change that. So
you're doing it though. If it didn't happen, it's not like you're never doing it. You're making the correction. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
So,
yes.
You guys are always, I respect the hell out of all of you all and love the hell out of all of you all and love what you're doing out there. So thank you. Yeah. Tyler Williams. Yeah, no problem. The Head and the Heart. Thank you so much for doing this. We'll be doing this again, the Kyle Meredith Live, every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Consequence of Sound Instagram. You can find us here. Of course, my other podcast, Kyle Meredith With, that's new interviews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And 6 p.m. Monday through Friday at WFPK.org. I do an hour-long show as well. So we'll have to see you all there. Thanks to Tyler. And I should also point a shout-out to my wife, Jen, who's keeping track of all of you all talking right now and sending those over as well. So
I love it.
Thanks to the team. All right, Tyler, thank you so much
guys.
again.
See you guys.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Hey, everybody. Kyle Meredith here. Do the podcast Kyle Meredith With. You can also find me on WFPK weekdays, 6 p.m. And this is the first episode, I guess, our very first little Kyle Meredith Live. The whole concept of this, instead of this song and album based interviews, we're going to be talking topical. A lot of the things that's happening globally, a lot of things that's happening in the music industry. It's going to be a very different kind of interview. Today, my guest is actually going to be Billy Hardison. Now, he's a friend of mine here in Louisville. He also runs independent music venues, Headliners Music Hall being one of them. He is part of NIVA, National Independent Venue Association. And here's the thing. There was an article that came out. It was up on Consequence of Sound recently, and it's 90% of independent music venues could close due to COVID-19. 90% of the music venues could close. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. The importance, one, of the music venues, the plight that all of them are having right now, and what it could mean.
For this inaugural episode of Kyle Meredith Live, thank you for doing this. I'll also mention, by the way, that of the many fantastic independent music venues out there, one of them that Billy does run, Headliners Music Hall here in Louisville, was also the basis for my wedding reception. So thanks for that as well.
Mine as well. Actually, prior to us buying it, way back when, Tina and I had our wedding party there as well.
Yeah, it's just, and that goes to show beyond, even the music, what these rooms have meant to us. Now, Billy, I'm going to let you do some more of your introduction. I've said that you are the owner of Headliners Music Hall. You're also one of the owners of Production Simple here in Louisville, and part of the National Independent Venue Association called NIVA. Tell me a little bit about what NIVA is, because this was created specifically after the pandemic started. Is that right? Or
right. It's about a 2-month-old organization with about 2,000 members of independent promoters and venues. And a lot of us are promoters / venue owners, and some of us are just promoters. It was in response to the mandated closures by the states, although we all voluntarily did it anyways. We see the we see the science, and we know this is long term, and we quickly acted behind the leadership of Dana Frank and Gary Witt and some others that put this together. That originally, it actually, the platform was through a town hall with Independent Venue Week with Marauder Group. And it started with a Zoom call, and it quickly grew into this 501c6 trade organization. And out of that, committees sprang up to organize. I mean, we're all independents. We're all very capable, but we don't necessarily agree on anything. That's why we're independents. And it's amazing that we were able to pull this together so quickly. I sit on the lobbying committee, and leadership in the House and Senate are key to getting legislation passed. So Mitch McConnell was important in that discussion. But my job as the Kentucky precinct captain is to communicate with independent venues that are NIVA members in Kentucky to garner support from all of our reps and senators from across the state.
So that's what you're doing daily here. Now, again, we've got the venues obviously closed. Some of them have talked about doing, like half capacity or something like that. But what exactly are you petitioning these Congress people for?
Well, I like the phrase 100% vaccinated capacity. Ultimately, people are going to do what they got to do to cash flow, and are going to take the opportunities presented them. But the thing is, rent and insurance, all those things aren't to scale to whatever your capacity is. So if you're allowed to open up at 33%, that doesn't mean that your mortgage is only going to be 33%. So it's not a sustainable model across the long term. And because we're in such a high risk business, mass gatherings and interstate travel, I mean, if you think about it, artists travel in coffins on wheels, basically.
That's a way to put it.
They're dragging that virus from state to state. Until the whole circuit across the country can open up and all the venues can open up at full capacity, it's not a sustainable model for us, nor do we think it's safe for our customers and fans and the artists and our staff. Now, again, many of us are going to do what we can to try to survive, but what we're asking Congress is we don't need more loans. We don't need more debt. We're asking that we potentially are going to have to put ourselves on ice for, until the end of 2021, depending on the next wave. And we need life support to get there. We're in a unique industry where not only are we at zero revenue, we are at negative revenue, as we still have ongoing expenses. We had bills prior to this, and every time a tour cancels, we're having to refund tickets. So it's not, and on top of that, the owners of these businesses, we don't have any livelihoods for our own families.
Right.
So that we're asking Congress, again, not for more loans. The PPP was not structured for us. Those are for businesses that are still largely open. Even at the new revised 60/40, we can't really bring these employees on because we don't have anything for them to do. So we're asking for not a handout, because we're not ones to ask for help. Independent venues and promoters just don't do that. We're asking for a hand up, just to put us on ice until we can get back to full capacity and bring this industry back full force.
Now, do you know what that number ultimately looks like? Because again, we're talking potentially for the rest of this calendar year. And this is what, 2,000 venues is more or less what we're talking about, I think I saw?
It's 2,000 venues and promoters all across the country in every state. Mm-hmm. And when you have major markets that are affected with high infection rates, and you have to pull, say, New York or Denver out of the loop, or Minneapolis, the tour just basically crumbles around it. And, I like to compare it to, some of these states may open up fully and there could be some form of treatment, but tours take a while to build, and this isn't just going to happen overnight. I like to compare it to, let's say that Andy said I could open up my steakhouse at 100% capacity. Well, I don't have any steaks to sell. So, there's my restaurant, all the tables, but my chefs in the kitchen don't have any steaks to cook.
By the way, really quick there, for all the people not in Kentucky, that's he's referring to Andy Beshear, the governor here in Kentucky. So it's who we're all on a first name basis with, because we talk to the TV every day. But go on.
With that said, I think Andy's doing a great job. And again, I'm on the side of science here. I feel like we're going to have spikes in the fall. There's a lot of hesitancy to open at all. Not every state's the same way. But I agree with what Andy's doing here, and most of our industry feels the same way, that this is going to be a long-term chill out for us. And when we come out the other side of it, we'd like to be here to preserve this ecosystem the artists are out of work too. We are 75% of their revenue. The live industry is basically how these artists make a living. And if we're not there, it's going to take a long time for this ecosystem to build back up.
Yeah, there's a quote that really stuck out to me, and I've in my mind been attributing it to Maggie Rogers, who said it, and I haven't checked myself to see if that's true, but there was a quote anyway that said, the majority of musicians who did this as a full-time job will not be doing this as a full-time job by the time this year is over. And like you said, 75% of artists' income comes from their live streams. Again, what we're talking about here is 2,000 independent venues across the country. And the survey that I think you all were a part of, 90% of them could close due to the pandemic. 90% of 2,000. I didn't do the math on that, but I know that's most of 2,000 right there.
And that's within 6 months of the pandemic starting. That was a survey of our members, and 90% said that we cannot hang on longer than 6 months. And now we're 3 months in, and the closures are starting. Barracuda in Austin, Rebar in Seattle, where Nirvana did their album release for Nevermind. The numbers are going to grow exponentially over the next month.
So nobody is really immune to this either. You mentioned Austin. We think about Austin as a city that really takes care of their music industry. We hear about Canada, where there's actually government funding that does go into the music industry here. I don't know if you can speak to Canada if they're looking at this the same way, and especially with a city like Austin. Are there cities out there that have already stepped up to try to invest? Because again, obviously, we know that this isn't just a music related thing. This is everybody, 8 billion people in the world, and every business in the world affected. So, but are there pockets like that that are being able to rise to the occasion at all?
Well, and then that's actually where the lobbying committee, and there's also a local committee with NEVA, is working really hard to work with city governments and state governments to find funding to help. Actually, there was just yesterday a proposal put forward to the Metro Council here in Louisville by Louisville Forward to grant money to small businesses here in Louisville through the CRF, which was how money flowed from the CARES Act to the states into the cities. But it's, you know, these legislations have been passed so quickly, and this money that the federal government's trying to get into the hands of the people that need it, you know, the speed is creating some confusion. So accessing the funds are hard. You know, the intentions are good, but actually getting our hands on this money is proven difficult. But every day that goes by, even the cities are starting to find ways to help out their businesses. It's just that, you know, the clock is ticking. Seattle has found a way through WANMA, and Memphis, there was actually some money doled out to 10 venues. And again, Louisville, working really hard with Metro Council. And, you know, I've got to give a shout out to Brandon Cohn and Pat Mulvihill and Mary Ellen Wiederwall and Rebecca Fleischaker there, and the council and the mayor's office in general has been helpful. And we know that they have their hands full right now and trying to work these parallel paths. I know it's tough, and so it's greatly appreciated. So yes, there are efforts being made. These things take time, take a lot of work, you know, and you know it's not your money till it's in the bank. So I know across the country, all these venues are working hard with their local governments to find ways to get this done and get this done quickly.
Yeah. So we're talking, if you joined us here in the middle, we're talking with Billy Hardison, a production simple based out of Louisville. He also runs Headliners Music Hall, is an independent music venue owner, and is a member of NEVA, the National Independent Venue Association. Now, I point that out again. We've seen the hashtag out there you're using called Save Our Stages, which is what this is all about. And you are reaching out to people, right? I mean, the public, we can be involved in this. How do we do that?
Oh, most certainly. If you go to the saveourstages.com, all the information's there. We've had over 500,000 letters sent to Congress. We have been able to get some funding through the help of some ticketing companies, and others are coming on board to, we've hired a lobbyist who's been very helpful to help us fight our battle in DC. And but it takes the fans, and we have a large collective voice. You know, music is life, and we know how important music is to the fans, and the artists are just as helpful. We have lots of artists supporting us. But if you go to saveourstages.com, everything's right there for you to where you can send direct messages to your senators and Congress people in DC to help push forward this legislation. Right now, we're
Hang on, Billy. I think we might have lost you. There you go. Try that again. You said right now.
Right now, we're focusing on the Restart Act in the Senate, which is kind of some bridge funding until CARES 2 comes out, as we're calling it. And so there's no time like the present for fans. If whatever venue it is that you love, it needs that help. And if you just go to saveourstages.com, you're going to be able to find the resources to reach your local representative in DC.
Yeah, I want to name some of the artists. 600 artists plus with social media impressions of 250 million are supporting NEVA's request. That includes, and I'm not going to read all of these, but Billy Joel, Lady Gaga, Gary Clark Jr., the Alabama Shakes, Willie Nelson, the Lumineers, Black Keys, Patti Smith. The list goes on among this. So it's nice that you're having I mean, I don't know why anybody in the music industry wouldn't be a part of this, by the way, wouldn't be supporting this, because, you know, the most dire question here is, say the worst happens, say this 90% thing happens, that 90% of independent music venues aren't able to reopen. What does that mean in 2021? What does the music industry look like at that point? If you can hypothesize, paint that picture.
Well, I mean, you know, initially, the agencies, and by the way, the agencies are struggling as well. That there are new organizations like NITO, for instance, which is a independent agency organization. They are in the same boat we are, but they're going to struggle to put together tours. In the long term, you do have the bigger, you know, over 80% of our industry is largely Live Nation and AEG, and you're going to have a similar experience. Not to say that the big companies don't have a place, because they most certainly do, but it's the multiple flavors across our country that make the experiences great for the artists and for the fans. And so initially, the agents won't be able to put together tours because there are too many closures to string together the dates. But on the backside of that, if independents are gone, then you have just a handful of companies owning everything, which, you know, I don't think necessarily is going to have the experience that the fans and artists are looking for. But I think the biggest issue is going to be the gap.
We've got to hold on as your connection resets there.
Drive 600 miles between shows and make that an affordable tour.
Yeah, I'm looking at how the tour routes are affected, which is a picture you've given me here. And what I'm seeing here is, and you can explain this further, but with the independent venues in the major cities go, it's just natural that you can't route to the smaller cities in between, right?
Right. It's just the economics of a tour, how far they can travel in one night, and just physically, you know, I mean, there aren't wormholes to jump from city to city. So to get from Atlanta to Minneapolis, you're gonna pass through Indy, but you also got to go through Louisville and usually Bloomington and lots of secondary and tertiary markets just to string that together to make it affordable to tour, because, you know, the artists have to look at their bottom line costs too to get on the road, and they have to make the economics work just to turn the key to get on the bus, in the same way that we have to make the economics work to turn the key to walk in the front door.
Right. It's scary. I mean, and I don't know even what it's from your point of view. I know you and your wife both sort of work in the industry like this. I think in a private call you and I had before this, you said we're not a very diversified family. And I think that goes on, you know, I mean, there are so many people in a similar situation as you are. You know, I was talking with Jim Ward from Sparta, you know, at the drive-in. He also owns a venue, and that's what he was saying. Is like, you know, any money that he was able to get, this was at the beginning of the pandemic, you know, he was giving it straight to his staff so they could pay their rent. And the thought come up, he goes, because what's going to happen now? They can't pay, we can't pay. Do they just, you know, do the landlords come in and repossess these venues right away? Do they just sit there dormant? I mean, is there any hope that even if the money doesn't come, that some of these venues will be able to make deals out that says we're frozen, we're paused?
Well, I mean, that would be the hope, and I'm sure a lot of landlords are doing what they can, but of course that's part of their livelihood as well. Mm-hmm. And we just can't sit indefinitely by and expect a landlord or Wells Fargo, as far as mortgage, not to collect on rents. And again, I'm going to go back to what I said before, that, you know, operating at a lower capacity, you know, the thought is to kickstart the economy again by getting something back to work. But if you're taking in only 1/3 of your revenue and you're having to pay your full mortgage or rent, that's going to catch up. And, you know, these bills aren't prorated, but, you know, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Miss you there.
We're just having another little connection issue, but I'm actually going to wrap that up. Unless you're trying to make a big, important point here right at the end.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Billy Hardison, once again, Billy Hardison, Production Simple, Headliners Music Hall here in Louisville, Kentucky. It's NIVA, the National Independent Venue Association, and saveourstages.org. That's the site, right?
That's right.
All right. So I encourage anybody who's watching right now, anybody who watches this once we posted it after the live stream, to please check out Save Our Stages, because if you're a music fan, if you go to Consequence of Sound's website with any consistency, this affects you and your mental health and your livelihood and what it's going to mean. As everybody says, we can't wait to get back out into these rooms. There may not be rooms for you to get to. I mean, I think that's the big point. So it's going to take everybody, more than just these venues, putting this out there, more than just, Billy out here talking to the Congress people. It takes all of us going to saveourstages.org and the various sites. I know Music Cares has got their thing, but really trying to make sure that the people in charge are hearing this, because the alternative is no good.
Unthinkable.
Yeah,
Unthinkable.
It's no good. Billy, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about this today. I so appreciate it.
Thank you, Kyle.
I hope you and Tina stay safe and healthy over there. And for everybody else, thank you so much. Again, we'll be doing this series Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. Of Tyler Williams from the Head and the Hearts on Thursday to talk a bit more about the other side of this conversation from the artist's point of view. So we'll be doing that. And in the meantime, I'll be getting ready for a 6 p.m. show on WFPK.org. So I'll see you there as well. Billy, thanks again. Take care. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Bye.